Welcome to the Inspiring Coaches Show, the podcast devoted to inspiring coaches to bring their professional dreams to life by revealing the knowledge, insights, and best practices of other inspiring coaches. I'm your host, Jen Anderson, Master Certified Coach, early settler of the coaching industry, lover of all things coaching, and what coaching is doing to make the world a better place. Well, hello out there. As you all know by now, I love to start every coaching session by asking my client what we can celebrate from their life. And of course, it's a game changer for most of my clients because honestly, most people walk through the world thinking about what's not right instead of what is right. And so I love the opportunity to set the stage for coaching coming from a place of positivity. We always come from a place of strengths with our clients. And so today we have a celebration coming from Cheryl, who is a very early adopter Canadian coach. In other words, she's been around a long time, since the very beginning. And she says that she's really proud that she gets to celebrate that she sees more and more people coming to a place of really valuing coaching to the point where they're recognizing it and they're asking for coaching. And in particular, she's seeing this even happening when she goes out for a coffee with friends. They actively ask her to coach them in the moment. So we are definitely having that impact on the world that we were all looking for so very long ago. And P.S., our guest today has also been in the world of coaching a very long time. So she probably can also share some perspectives about where we were and where we are now. But before we go into all of that, I would like to invite each of you listeners to send us a celebration, just a couple of quick sentences about something that you're really happy about from your world of coaching. Do you have to keep in mind that confidentiality is important in any coaching engagement, so you might not want to name names, but we are really happy to welcome you to celebrate your coaching and the impact that you're having as an inspired coach in the world. So you can send that to Jennifer@coachingoutofthebox.com, and I would be delighted to include you in our celebrations in an upcoming podcast. So today, our guest is Deborah Shukyn-Plageman. I think I got that right this time. Yes, she says I did, so that's good. And Deborah's going to be good. Deborah's going to be sharing her perspectives on neurodivergence in coaching. Deborah is an 18-year veteran, as I mentioned earlier. Credentialed coach, she is an ICF PCC. She's a mentor coach and was trained as an ICF PCC assessor. She's also a coaching supervisor. She's got a bunch of initials here that I'll read quickly: EMCC, ESIA, EIA, senior practitioner and supervisor. And she is a certified ADHD coach. She's also a two-time founder and co-host of podcast and coaching continuing professional development community, Neurodivergently Coaching. And in terms of the clients she serves in both coaching and supervision, approximately 90% of her clients are neurodivergent. She has a master's degree and 3 years of doctoral candidacy, all focused on research into the use of coaching to support people who experience barriers and marginalization to full participation in society. She's a practitioner researcher leading research on DEI in coaching supervision in partnership with a community employment organization, which is founded by a member of the neurodivergent community. And on a personal note, she is both an ally and a member of the neurodivergent community, as am I, Deborah. So to get you centered on her topic, Deborah has provided us with a quote. Do you ever wonder about the untapped potential in your coaching? What if some of your coaching clients are neurodivergent? What if you're neurodivergent? The chances are high that neurodivergence is already present in your coaching practice. In a world that is neurodiverse, maybe neurodivergence is just hiding in plain sight. So while you're pondering that, we'll take a quick break to hear from our inspiring sponsor, and then we'll be back with Deborah.
Whether you have your ICF certification or going through the process, you may be wondering how to set up and build a thriving coaching business. We know it's not easy to get started. There are so many unknowns, yet you know who you are and how your work can positively impact the lives of your clients. With this in mind, we have created the Business Builder Essentials for Coaches program. This program is led by a world-class experienced coach that has helped hundreds of coaches build their practices over the years. You can help your clients set and achieve their goals, learn new skills, and make positive changes in their lives. This can be an extremely rewarding experience. You don't have to go at it alone. This course is practical and pragmatic and gets working towards building your dream coaching business from day one. You've got this, and we're here to help. Reach out to an enrollment coach today. Let's make your dream a reality.
All right, well, welcome back. And as a quick reminder, today we're being inspired by our guest, Deborah Shukyn-Plageman, in regards to her work in supporting neurodivergent coaches and also providing coach training for working with neurodivergent clients. So welcome, Deborah. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love the idea of being inspired and inspiring. And so, yeah, that's amazing.
Good. Yes, I was inspired by all of that somehow, right? Well, good. I'm glad. And our pre-conversations have been so interesting. And so I'm really glad that our audience is going to get a chance to hear your thinking and what you've been creating around this really, I think, more relevant than ever topic. So I'm excited to kind of dig in with it. So I do think, and we talked about this, that the best place to start might be to define those terms, neurodivergence and, neurodiversity and neurodivergence. And so I invite you to kick us off with that.
Yeah, so the language it's so interesting and so new and it's emergent and it's also subjective, right? And so what matters in coaching is what is the person who's in front of you and how you're having that conversation. And so I just, think it's an idea to start at the beginning, right? So we've already thrown around a couple of terms, neurodiversity and neurodivergence. And so neurodiversity as I use it, as it has been defined by Judy Singer in the 1990s, so in our lifetime, is sort of as a social movement that describes the idea that all human beings are different from each other. All human brains, think of it as a big, beautiful rainbow. All human brains think, learn, process, behave differently. So there is no such thing as the typical or the human brain. We all look different from that perspective. And then neurodivergence, if you think of the word divergent, neurodivergence is the idea that think about the outliers, the ends of the rainbow, maybe where the pot of gold is. And so neurodivergence is folks that might be medically diagnosed or recognize their own selves as thinking, learning, processing quite differently from the rest of the world. And so you have neurodiversity, this big, beautiful rainbow, and you have neurodivergence. Folks that might fall under that might be folks diagnosed with, most commonly you'd hear something like ADHD or autism. And so that's kind of the concept that we're working with. And to make matters even maybe a little more complex is the idea that in the workplace, more often than not, when we're talking about being neurodiverse at work, we're probably talking about being neurodivergent at work, but as it's commonly referred to, is neurodiversity at work. So it's kind of a big, interesting, evolving vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. And so much of it is, I think, recently more so emerging. There's a greater awareness than there ever has been before. And, prior to just a few months ago, I didn't even realize that, having been diagnosed with ADHD way back in the 90s, since you referenced that earlier, I did not know that I was considered to be neurodivergent. So I think one of the questions I want to ask you is about that quote where you say, hiding in plain sight. What do you think you'd like to share with our listeners about that reality?
Well, I think that we have, first of all, depending on where you consult, we're talking about 10 or 20% of the world's population here. And so, ask yourself, are 10 or 20% of the people are they stating that they are a member of the neurodivergent community? Probably not.
Probably not.
And so that kind of leads me to the idea that maybe we're hiding in plain sight. In the end of the day, we're all human beings. And if you're really a keen observer of humans, as we are in coaching, you're probably noticing that there are certain ways that certain folks are showing up. And so whether it's disclosed, whether it's diagnosed or not, it's probably a good idea as a coach to think about how you might adapt your coaching based on what neurological profiles might show up.
Mhm. Makes perfect sense. In fact, a couple of quick just anecdotes as I was preparing for today. I was thinking about how often people who may fall on that in that category. I'm hesitating here because who am I to say, right? I have no basis for saying that. But how interesting is when somebody says, I love having you as my coach because you just seem to understand me when so many people don't.
Yeah.
And I've always been humbled by that. It's actually bringing up a little bit of emotion for me in that, because I do understand what it's like to feel like, wow, not everyone understands me, and what comes with that. But so the opportunity within that as a coach. And then earlier today, I was talking with one of my clients who is coaching someone who has been diagnosed with ADHD. And she was talking about wanting to really serve her well. I mean, her heart is in wanting to serve. And she said, I just don't know if the value is there. And I know it's up to my client to tell me whether the value is there. And so I told her that we were going to be, that you were my guest today. So sharing that with her. So just feels as though it's really coming on to have a bigger importance in our community, at least my little bit of it. So Deborah, what brought you to deciding that you were going to put this emphasis on your coaching?
Well, goodness, I think there's many things, but I think maybe I want to share some of my personal history. And so my daughter, and I think this is true for many of us. And so my daughter, early on, she was diagnosed with learning disabilities and some invisible disabilities. And after her second concussion, she was diagnosed with ADHD. And so one of the things that we're recognizing, and as the diagnostic criteria is evolving beyond little boys who are hyperactive, then we're starting to see, some broadening of the diagnostic criteria and some broadening of the criteria in general. And so I want to say that my daughter initially brought me to the topic. There was some recognition that I had an affinity for coaching some folks who might more typically be neurodivergent engineers, folks in Silicon Valley, folks in the military. And I just love that work. And as I became more aware and more familiar, and then I took some training, and that kind of started me on a pathway. And to make a long story short, last year, I was diagnosed myself. And so I think, we show up from many different pathways. We have late diagnosis, we have acquired brain injury sometimes. I've always been sort of, I come from a family of social justice warriors. My mother was a social worker. My father was a groundbreaking educator. And so I think it's in my blood. And I think this is, what I now know about myself is that there's a certain ease amongst folks who are neurodivergent in our conversation. And so there was that natural attraction to my practice for clients. So it's been quite an interesting journey. And then research kind of comes alongside that.
And I think you told me that being a researcher is, I don't know what language you use now. It was a couple of weeks that we talked, but kind of your at your core, in your heart of hearts, you are a researcher.
Yeah, and I want to say I learn more literally every day about how my happiness intersects with my relaxing into the things that are natural to my neurotype. So I am happiest when I'm in my rabbit hole researching and reading and talking about my topic of quote unquote special interest, which just happens to be neurodivergence in coaching.
And so you're in your happy place right now, because I want to
I am.
explore that a little bit more with you. Given that we have such limited time, what would you most like to convey about neurodivergence in coaching?
So I think a couple of things. So one is that there are several lenses, right? So there's how we coach, there's who we are as a coach, and then there's who our clients are as a coach, as a coachee rather. And I want to say that in many cases, and you mentioned this earlier about strengths, in many cases, sitting with someone who is neurodivergent and helping them really take off their masks and really contemplate who they are at their core and what makes them strong, and then try and help, very often through storytelling and mirroring back those stories. How can we bring that to bear in a world that wasn't designed for you and me?
Right. That really struck me. I told you I listened to one of your podcast episodes about being neurodivergent in a neuronormative world. I hope I'm using the language correctly. I apologize if I don't. And I was thinking about my core coaching program that I established 25 years ago. What my book is based on, it's called Plant Yourself Where You Will Bloom. So it's really helping people to find where it is that they're that unique work environment, where they're meant to be. And as I was listening to your podcast episode, I was thinking, well, that sure explains my earliest body of work, that so many of us do not fit into that necessarily kind of normal work environment, and that I've unconsciously been trying to support people possibly. And I'm wondering how many coaches out there have also, without knowing it, been drawn to this. So there's something you want to speak to there? Any thoughts around?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind. So first of all, yeah, I think there are many of us who are hiding in plain sight, who have, if we think about the population of coaches, very often late stage career and so on, we have found ways of being in the world. Like, this is not your child's ADHD. We have found ways of being in the world. Sometimes we need a little help from a coach, from our own coaches, from our own coaching supervisors. But by and large, we've found ways of being in the world that work for our particular brand of neurotype. And then I want to say that the corollary to that too is the social justice warrior in me says, and how have we weeded folks like us out?
Mm.
And that's kind of where my gladness in coaching meets my social justice warrior in becoming a coach, educator, mentor, and supervisor,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is how can folks who are hiding in plain sight, who maybe don't know it, who are struggling getting credentialed,
Mm.
how can we help you to make your way in a very linear environment where we have competency-based assessments, where we have very strict regime of online testing and so on. How can I help you through that? And how can, through my work, I help the profession become more accessible to more folks like us? That's really a big part of my being here.
Mm. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you're seeing as possibilities around that?
That's a good question. Yeah, what are some things that I'm seeing as possibilities? Well, one of the things that I'm taking apart is the competency model. So we're in sort of you're talking to us mid-design of a program that we'll be releasing this year
Okay.
that is going to both be adaptable for neurodivergent coaches, but also help all coaches to be adaptable with neurodivergent humans.
Right, because you've got the
And
two sides of the one coin that you're dancing, to mix metaphors,
absolutely,
which I'm sure you're comfortable with me doing.
absolutely, absolutely. And then, how do we take this linear thing that is this competency model, and how do we put the neurodivergent lens to that?
Mm.
And how do we then support you in supporting your clients? So that's really lots of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we integrate things like strengths-based models, and so we're really putting our minds to all the different pathways and research that's available, which is not a lot.
Mm, right. Yeah. Well, something you just said remind me of something that you wrote to me. And I told you pre-show that I was going to ask you about it. Oh, it was the world will be a great place when, and it was about the accommodations. Do you remember what you answered to that? I'll read your answers. So you said the world will be a great place when we truly understand that what we now think of as accommodations are actually a collection of best practices that benefit all human beings. And so I'm connecting that to what you just said about how the world of coaching can evolve to be more inclusive of this. So what would you like to share?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, right? Because, so my jam is primarily leadership coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm reading about, what research there is on neurodiversity in the workplace. And I'm reading, research that's 2023,
Mm-hmm.
2024 publications, and just kind of bringing all of that together. And yet, I'm not seeing a lot published in that arena about coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if we start to think about that I'm very interested in coaching from an inward facing perspective. Most of the research is what is our return on investment and what are we doing and so on and so forth. But I'm very interested in how are we making not just the workplace accessible, but the workplace for coaches accessible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's a funny thing about folks like me with my neurological profile. Ethics and morality are really always front and center, almost in a linear way. So I'm like, if it's happening in large organizations out there, and we are a $23 billion industry in coaching, how come we're not looking inward about how to make this business of coaching, of becoming a coach, more accessible.
Important conversation. I wish we had more time
Hmm.
to talk about. The good news is you do have a podcast for coaches who are interested. So if you could share the name of your podcast and where it's available.
I would love to. So the podcast is called Neurodivergently Coaching, and that is myself and my co-host Terry Donahue. And that can be found on everywhere your podcasts are found. We're on virtually every podcast, Spotify, Apple, all the places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can find Neurodivergently Coaching on LinkedIn. That's myself and my partner, Terry Donahue,
Mm-hmm.
on LinkedIn. And then you can find me at
Yes.
PersonaGrata Consulting, also on LinkedIn. And what you might want to reach out to me for is, well, conversations like this always.
Mm-hmm.
But more specifically, if you have a referral that's beyond your scope of practice, that is somebody who is neurodivergent, I'd happily take your referrals. I'd happily take you on as a mentee, particularly if you're looking to go to the next level credentialing wise. And then coaching supervision, which is really creating a space for a more reflective practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd love to be there for all of those things, for all of the listeners that resonate.
Yeah, and I especially can see how the supervision piece would be so incredibly helpful for coaches who are recognizing, even maybe in this conversation for the first time, that aha, this may be a place to grow as a coach, right? Being able to evolve the skills and the abilities for this population as well. So thank you. I'm glad that you've let everybody know. I love to always ask, what's your next stretch? I know you've got your fingers in all kinds of fun things. So what would you like to share with us about what your next stretch is as a coach?
Yeah, so I think I still probably have a few good years ahead of me. So this fall, my partners and I will be releasing a package of CCEUs, that's continuing professional development units,
Mhm.
for coaches and for leaders who want to be more neuro inclusive. And even as I approach the final stages of my current coaching research, I'm excited about the possibilities of being published in academic journals. So that would be my first academic publishing.
Ooh.
And as typical for my neurotype, I'm also considering what my next big research project will be. And so I'm looking for research funders, particularly, and partners. And then I know that both book chapters and a whole book are definitely on the horizon for me.
That makes absolute sense. Yeah. Well, good. I was, my philosophy is we're growing or we're not. And dot, dot, dot. So thank you for being a wonderful example of that for everyone as well. And I'm looking at your beautiful watercolor behind you there. And I'm thinking there may need to be a rainbow in there since we're the
Mhm.
pot of gold at the end. But anyway, I just love that imagery, by the way. That really touched my heart.
Oh, I'm so glad. And I will share this because you just lit me up. My daughter recently did my whole rebranding.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is my daughter's in marketing, so I was
Oh.
very lucky to get her.
Mm-hmm.
And so my daughter designed that logo for me.
Wow, wonderful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you could hang on for just a couple of extra minutes, we're going to break for just a moment, and then I'm going to come back and share with everyone how you can become a guest of the show. So we'll be right back.
Hello, listeners. This is a special message from the International Coaching Group. We're thrilled to have you with us today on the Inspiring Coaches Show. If you're in search of an ICF accredited coach educator, look no further. Our flagship 555 coaching skills training program has been taught to over 45,000 people in over 38 countries. Additionally, our signature Fast Track to ICF credential program has been a key reason why both individuals and corporations choose the International Coaching Group to support their coaching skills, training, and coaching journeys. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.coachingoutofthebox.com to learn more or schedule a call with one of our enrollment coaches. We're here to support you every step of the way. Don't wait, start your coaching journey today.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So I promised to tell you how to apply to be a guest. We're always looking for inspiring guests, like Deborah, of course. So the Inspiring Coaching Show is looking for inspiring guests. If you're interested in joining me on the show, please send an email to jennifer@coachingoutofthebox.com and include your topic idea and a short blurb on how you think it will inspire coaches to bring their professional dreams to life. And of course, if you want to refer someone to us as well, that would be a great way to reach me. All right. So as we know, expressing gratitude is fundamental to who we are as coaches in the world. So Deborah, thank you so much for being willing to be here today. I know you have a full plate and you just are loving life. And so the fact that you shared as much as you did with us today is, I'm truly grateful for you.
I'm so happy to be invited. Thank you, Jen.
Oh, good, good. Thank you. And I want to thank our inspiring sponsor, the International Coaching Group, who actually connected me to Deborah in the first place. We'll acknowledge that. And I want to thank all of our listeners. You know, you're here because you're committing yourself to constantly seeking inspiration to be who you want to be as a coach in the world. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time, and be sure to subscribe to the program so that you get all of the inspiring podcast episodes that are upcoming. And until next time, I'm Jen Anderson, Master Certified Coach, and this is the Inspiring Coaches Show.